Mirella Manelli, and today I'm going to show you how to do a beaded volume weft hair extension install using brand new Manelli hair. I'm super excited to give you a sneak peek to these brand new hair extensions. So let's go ahead and get this video started, but please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, share this video with a friend, and now let's go ahead and get started. This is my own hair extensions that I'm going to be launching called Manelli Hair. Now, the real reason why I wanted to create my own hair extension brand was because I was just simply tired of the inconsistencies of the quality of hair extensions that I was using before. I wanted to make sure that there was a lot more quality control. What I love about these extensions, they are 100% Remy human hair. They're gonna last up to 12 months. So they are super long lasting. We put them to the test, colored them, worn them, and I'm just so excited to now bring them to you. Now, Manelli Hair is gonna come in 3 different lengths and in 7 different shades. So you can expect a wide range from dark brown all the way to blondes and blended blondes and rooted blondes. And then the lengths that they're gonna come in is 16 inch, 20 inch, and 24 inch. So what I'm gonna be installing in my model's hair today are 16 inch in color 1822. The 16 inch is perfect length for just adding the volume without adding too much length. So anytime we're adding length, we're gonna need to definitely add in more than just 1 row. But because we're just looking for that volume, 1 row is simply enough. Now there are 5 bundles. These are coming in 100 grams. So you can expect 20 grams a bundle here. And this is exactly what they look like. So this is what we're installing in her hair. We did go ahead and lightly tone these so that way they can blend in with my model's hair today. So again, super customizable, and you can see this is what one little bundle looks like. It's about 12 inches. So these are pre-cut so that way they fit almost perfectly on almost everybody's head size. We went ahead and toned these so that way it can match seamlessly with my model's hair, and we went ahead and pre-curled them so it can kind of match her natural texture we're going to add in later. Now let's go ahead and start the beaded row install. The first thing that we're going to do for the install itself is we're going to figure out exactly where we're going to place this. So what I like to do is kind of use my hands as a guide to see where that natural curvature of the head is. And this is going to help me decide almost kind of around where I want to add that volume weft. And then I'm going to clean it up with a comb. So now that I have the outline kind of where I want it, what I'm going to do here is just clean this up. Now you want to make sure you're at least like 2 fingers above that ear. You don't want, you know, they wear glasses or sunglasses, anything like that. You don't want that to get in the way. But overall, I have a pretty good guide of where I want that section to be. And I'm just going to go all the way up front, even though we're going to leave some of that front piece out. And I'm just kind of looking for that natural curve of that head. So that's the whole purpose behind using my hands to kind of guide me. So let me show you exactly what that looks like from the side profile. So if I'm kind of connecting my hands in a soft U shape, I'm gonna do that right on top here. And this is gonna give me an overall guide of where that curvature should be. So I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side. Now that I have her section completely balanced, I'm gonna go ahead and use a little bit of hairspray to go ahead and secure a lot of these little flyaways so that way they're not fighting me while I put in these beads, because this is gonna help me prevent a lot of those crosshairs. The next step is matching up her beads here. So I'm going to be using a medium brown bead so it closely matches her natural shade at the base. So it's really important that you're choosing the right bead color so that way we get a blend in case they happen to poke through for whatever reason. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert silicone beads. So it's really important that you use silicone beads because there is only her natural hair living inside of the silicone beads. So you want that silicone to help be that cushion for the natural hair. And then you also want to make sure you have really clean sections. And just a little tip, if you are inserting your silicone bead, you want to make sure you're inserting it right at the base. So that's going to help prevent any additional crosshairs. So it's really important for you to make sure that all of your sections are evenly spaced and you have the right amount of density inside of these beads. So each person's going to be a little bit different. If they have finer hair, you might be adding in more hair with a deeper section. If they have really coarse hair, really dense hair, you're probably going to take a little bit more of a shallower section. But essentially, you want to make sure that you have enough space on each side of the bead, so that's exactly where the thread's going to go. Next, we're going to be adding in her wefts. Now, there are 5 bundles in total, which is kind of a lot of hair. So what we're going to be doing is just adding in probably 3 wefts, maybe 4. We'll take a look and see how much density my model wants in her hair today. But overall, I'm really excited because these wefts have no mustache, no return hair on them. So they're going to lay really flat, which is amazing. And because they are really thin Genius wefts, right at the base, the seam is really thin, they're gonna lay really flat against her head. So these make a really comfortable choice for a hair extension install. We decided that 4 wefts onto this one row is gonna be perfect for the amount of volume that we're trying to achieve. You can already see we got lots of fullness going on, and I've went ahead and secured them with some clips. And you're also gonna wanna make sure that your thread also closely matches the root area. So just like the beads, that's going to be another hot tip for you. Now we're going to go ahead and sew this right on in. So I always make sure that my thread is double threaded and I have a little knot on the end. So this is how I literally secure all of my installs. It just makes it so much easier and not so complicated. I just loop that right on through and now it's nice and secure. So a little tip is that, you know, as you're working with these wefts, you do want to make sure that they're all lined up perfectly, and that way you have a really secure install. And your primary goal is to make sure that you are threading on each side of the bead. So you just want to make sure you are finding those little pockets. You don't want to ever sew through the bead. So I'm just going to continue on sewing on the left side and the right side of the bead with my double thread. Now you can use a nylon single thread. That's a super popular option as well. But I particularly like the double threaded cotton thread because it swells and retracts in the same type of way that natural hair does. So that's what I like to mimic. But there's really no right or wrong way. It's just a matter of preference. The golden rule here is when you are sewing onto this seam line is you want to make sure that that thread is living right on top of that seam line and not on top of it. And this is how you're going to get a really secure install for your hair extensions. So I just love these wefts because you can see we have a really flat install right here, and it's gonna be really comfortable, especially when they lay back on their pillow or just like in the car. It's not gonna be really bulky in this area. So even though we have 4 wefts going on in this one row, it's actually laying down pretty flush. So that makes it really comfortable. And these are high quality hair extensions. So these are gonna last you up to 12 months with proper care at home. And what I love about them is, of course, they're Remy 100% human hair. And because they're human hair, you can customize them with the perfect shade with colors, so that way you can make sure that they match, just like they match here with my model's hair. I mean, this is gonna look so amazing when we're all done. Now, completely done doing the install. It should take you about 30 minutes or so. As you practice and you speed up with your time, it can actually be really a quick service that you can quickly add a pop of color, some volume into all of your clients. I'm really happy with this install. We got a nice top thread here. It's really flush. We're ready to go. So now the next step is going to be making sure that it all blends, and that's usually going to require a little bit of cutting. So let's go ahead and take this down so you can see how much this blends. I think overall this looks really, really good. We do have like a couple inches. You can almost see right through here where it cuts off. So even though we got like this cutoff point here, this is going to be a great conversation to have with my client. Make sure that if she wants to try to maintain some of this length or if she wants to match it up. So we decided we are just going to shape this up. She was really liking the length, and honestly, I feel like it looks pretty good. It looks really natural. It has a really good blend. And even though we got this black cape behind this blonde, it's making it look a little see-through, but it's actually quite a bit of hair. So we got a lot of volume going on, and it matches her natural density, which is perfect. Just something to kind of note, you know, sometimes your client will want the added length, which you totally can achieve with one row, but typically you're going to need about two. But overall, I feel like this is just adding an extra 2 to 3 inches onto her hair. So we're just going to bring this line up just a little bit. So what I'm going to be using are some shears that have more of a fatter head. So what these do is actually push the hair so we can get a really natural weight line. We don't want anything super heavy. We want to almost mimic what's going on right on the bottom here. I actually love these shears because you can see how they kind of push the hair. That's exactly what they're designed to do. And sometimes if you feel like your client's hair is super long with hair extensions, you can easily have them stand up for you. But I feel pretty comfortable right where she's at. I think the overall goal with hair extensions is you don't want a really hard line. You want it to look as soft as possible. That's what's going to give it that realistic look. We're going to put all the details to all of the color and all of that also down below in the description. And then my favorite little hack for the very front is to just kind of take out this section right behind the ear. And this is some of her extension hair. So we're going to blend the two together. And my favorite way to do that is by taking the hair and start flipping that up. So I want to create that little bit of a C curve. So you can see this is exactly where that hair extension started. So I don't really want to cut her natural hair so much. I'm just trying to create that C curve right in through there. And I just do this a little bit at a time. And then of course you want to make sure that's going to blend in with that back section. And then we're going to do the same thing to the other side. Now that we're all done blending, we just have one more final step to do, which is curl her hair and make sure she leaves the salon looking fabulous. I mean, we already definitely did that. It has a great blend and I think it looks beautiful and really natural because that's ultimately the key. You want the extensions to look completely seamless and like she doesn't have any extensions. So we're just gonna go ahead and finish it off with some Marcel curls, which is my favorite. And here's the final result of my one row beaded volume weft using all Manelli hair. And I really hoped you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe. And to learn everything about Manelli hair, make sure you check out. What's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm so excited because I'm gonna show you how I do a quick mini move up appointment for a hybrid weft hair extension install. And if you're new to my channel, my name is Mirella Manelli. I'm a hair educator and salon coach. But before we get this video started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video. Now let's go ahead and get started. It has been 6 weeks since my client first got her initial installation of 3 rows of hybrid weft hair extensions, and now it's time to move them up. And part of this appointment too is also color matching the top to the end. So toner always fades out, so when we do a move up, we also do a color gloss service. So that's what we're going to be doing today. First the mini move up and then the gloss service. Now you can see she has high density and really thick coarse hair as well. And that's the main reason why we needed to do the 3 rows in addition to her pretty blunt and short haircut that she started with, but she's had lots of grow out. So right here, what you can see is the 6-week grow out of what a weft looks like. And that's what we're going to do first is do the move up. And then we're going to do the color. And the reason for that is because when we move up the beads, we immediately wash the hair right after. Now you can see how much growth she's had. You can see the difference in the line of all of that dark hair. We haven't colored her hair whatsoever on the underside. So she has quite a bit of regrowth going on. So this is really exciting news. That line of where that blonde starts, that's where she started with her hair extension journey. So the fact that we've been able to grow out this really healthy hair and her overall goal is to eventually not need the extensions, we are definitely on the right path.
The first thing that you're going to do for a mini move up is start from the bottom and then you're going to work your way up. So this is the very first row on the bottom level, but you can see we have a little bit of fixing to do because we have a bead just kind of hanging out, not even attached to the weft, which is not a big deal. But we're going to flip this weft completely up and then isolate each of those beads and basically separate it because this is what's holding that weft up. And from there, we're going to gently separate each of the beads apart from each other. So this does a couple of things. This not only pushes the weft closer to the root area, but this is also going to detach any of the crosshairs that have attached to each other on the underside as the hair's just kind of been worn and grown out. One other thing that I noticed as I was trying to move them up is that the thread was looped over the bead here, or it might have just slipped inside of there through brushing and normal wear and tear. So I'm just going to kind of guide that little mini hair out of that thread so that way the thread can live on the sides of the bead. That's really important when you're doing your install. So I'm not sure how I got there because usually I check each of my rows before we move on if I need to redo anything. But essentially, we got it moved over, so it's looking great. We just got to fix that one in the middle. And I'm just going to continue to move these up, make sure they're thoroughly separated. And then another tip that something that I didn't do during the service was actually brush her hair before we got started. If I would have brushed it, it would have been so much more easier to navigate through. But from here, I'm going to start the move up process. So I'm using this Luxe tool and gently popping that bead open and then moving it right on up. But the key to this is making sure that it's really comfortable. I usually like to start in the center because that's where most of the grow out kind of starts. And a lot of the tension kind of hangs out towards the side or the edges of the hair. So I want to focus on that center piece so that way I make sure it's not bubbling or getting too saggy. And basically I work from the middle and then the right to the left until I get to the edges. One important thing when you're doing a move up is you want to make sure that your beads are in great condition still. The way that you know that a bead has just kind of had its day is when it becomes very discolored and it just looks like it's about to fall apart. So these beads are in general in pretty great condition. This client doesn't wash her hair super often, and that's another indicator too that these beads are doing really well. She does a great job of brushing her hair extensions. You can see that there's not a lot of debris living underneath them, and overall they look great. So I don't need to replace them. But if you did need to replace them, you would just simply remove this bead and then loop a brand new bead inside of this exact same hair section. A really good practice when you are moving up your beads is make sure you're detangling each and every section before you secure your bead. This is something that I didn't do in this video. Do as I say, not as I do in this instance, but it's mostly because I was working in this very awkward space and I was recording, so I was just trying to get through it for you guys. But right here, this little section, I actually collapsed the bead. So this is an indicator that this bead is just kind of like done and I'm not going to be able to reuse it. So keep in mind these silicone beads are coated with aluminum and then coated in the inside with the silicone. So they're actually pretty fragile pieces of metal. So this is when I needed to bust out the big gun. So this is my, I guess, flare tool opener, I think is what it's called. I'm going to put all the tools that I use down below so you get to see what they are. But I just put those little pinchers in each side and then I'm able to pop it open and slide it right on out. So this is where you're going to be able to see exactly how I replace a bead, which is kind of exciting because this does happen when you do a move up appointment. And this is why it's not always the best thing to do on yourself at home. This is why going to professional is necessary to not only make sure that each of the beads are in great condition, but you're just keeping your hair in great condition because that's really important part of having hair extensions. Now that I have all my beads moved up and I'm working on the very last one towards the end of the weft, I'm going to now move up that kind of loner one that's not even attached to the weft itself. But a great indicator to know that your weft is installed correctly is to make sure that all of your beads are in great alignment with each other. They should not be one higher or lower than the other or slightly diagonal. They all need to be exactly parallel with each other. So because this bead is just kind of a loner, I am going to go ahead and move it up, but I know that I'm going to have to sew the weft back onto this bead. So it's very important that I remember exactly where that weft is at, and you'll be able to tell too. So now that I have all the beads moved up, this is where I was saying that you wanted to detangle each of the sections. I usually detangle and comb through each of these sections before I move on to the next bead or before I close the bead. That's just kind of, I guess, a preference in a lot of ways, but I do want to show you exactly how much hair is falling out. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm combing through all of this and I'm collecting it in my hand so that way you can see exactly what a normal amount is like, and everyone's going to be a little different. Some have more hair fall out than others and some have less hair fall out than others. And this is how you know you have a really great install. The weft is nicely lined up. Now we do have that little hole we need to fix. So we are going to sew that bad boy back on. So what I'm trying to do here is just exactly see where it's living, kind of have my finger as a placeholder. And I just need to make sure that we're going to sew on the right side and the left side of the bead. So that way the weft has an anchor point and something to kind of hold on to, because the last thing we need is that little space there. And the way I do this is I double up my thread and I loop that needle in between my thread to lock it in place. So you can see that the end is knotted up and I'm securing it. And I'm just going to do this a couple times. Then I'm going to secure it by doing my little fun hack. And what I do is once I come to that end point, I really just want to secure off that thread. I'm going to wrap it around my needle 3 times and then just gently guide that loop all the way down. But this is kind of like a slow and gentle process. You're just going to do it little by little by little, getting that knot as close as possible. And then I just cut the excess thread off and we got a nice clean install. Now we're ready to move on to the second row. So now I'm going to go ahead and speed this up because hopefully you got a little bit of a preview of exactly what a move up entails. And here is that 6-week grow out again. We got a beautiful grow out with this one. Her weft looks like in great shape, although we do have this little surprise pin that I went ahead and removed. And then we're just going to flip that bad boy up and isolate each of those beads, bring them down, and repeat the same exact process. Pricing for a mini move up is going to vary greatly depending on the hairstylist that you go to, the experience level, as well as just the salon and the type of extension method that you have installed. But the range for a mini move up can vary between $50 per row all the way up to the thousands I've seen for a mini move up. It just depends on the added value that you're adding. But I can tell you that at my salon in Mission Viejo, we charge $75 per row for my junior artists to move them up. And then any services like a shampoo, blow dry, or any color services are done a la carte. So everything is extra. But if you just wanted to come in for a mini move up, it's $75 per row. And this generally takes about 30 minutes per row to do. So moving up these 2 rows took me about 45 minutes to an hour. And now I want to move on to that third and final row to move up. Now, something that I do want to show you here is that she brushed her hair a little too hard. Now, she did notify me about this, and I usually include fixing the weft if it's like a simple fix like this. Now, if the weft is just not taken care of, or there's tons of matting, or there's lots of pulling and just it's not overall taken care of, then usually I have like a different conversation with my client. But you can tell her extensions are extremely clean. There's no debris underneath any of these beads whatsoever. And her just, you know, accidentally brushing her hair extensions a little too hard. I'm pretty sure she learned her lesson herself by being a little bit more gentle and careful. She is a first-time hair extension wearer, so she's going to have a little bit of a learning curve throughout washing and styling and wearing them and brushing them and just overall caring for them. So these are all great conversations to have with your client as you start, you know, to do their move up. So I'm going to fix this little bad boy. I know that I'm going to need at least 2 beads here, so that way the weft can hold on to that section underneath. So I'm just kind of visually measuring this out. Now, thankfully, she didn't brush her hair too hard to the point where she pulled out her hair. Thankfully, she does have pretty high density, and also her hair is coarse, so it is really strong. And even though it is thick, dense, and strong, you do want to be really careful when you get closer to that front hairline, because everybody's hair is a lot more sparse than what's going on in the interior. So once I get these 2 beads lined up, I'm going to just double check that it is perfectly aligned, so that way I know I can sew it correctly on each side of the bead. One thing you do not want to do though is cut the previous thread, because if you do that, you're going to unravel the rest of the thread that's sewn into the other beads. So that's why I'm just sewing right on top of this old thread. It can get a little bulky depending on the type of weft and thread you are using, but it is imperative that you just sew right on top of it. And I just want to make sure that I'm securing it really nicely and it's comfortable, cutting that thread really closely, so that way she just has another seamless blend. The next time she comes in 6 weeks, we're actually going to do a full removal and reinstall.
Now that I have her 3 rows moved up, I'm gonna mix up her toner formula because we need to retone her natural hair so that it blends into the extension hair just a little bit better. And that's totally normal because about every 6 to 8 weeks, you do need a toner to kind of like refresh everything. So she's a little bit more on the warm side compared to the extensions. So I'm gonna go in with a really quick toner. It's the SV Rapid Toner from Kenra Professional. It tones in less than 5 minutes. It's the perfect toner for her. Little tip is to always use the scale because you're gonna get the best accuracy. I'm mixing this up 1 to 2, but my tripod's broken, so I just wanted to show you the color. And yes, I kind of eyeballed it, but I also did measure it on the scale. She also can maintain this tone with like a color depositing conditioner like the Moroccan oil mask. So they have like different colors and things like that. So there is one that's more on the platinum side. That's probably what I would recommend for her. Or she can even do like a blue shampoo and conditioner in between. But generally this works really great for her. Keep in mind her hair is more on the coarse side. It's really thick, so the toner does wash out quicker with that. Washing it a lot less in between services is going to give you better longevity for your color. So I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up, and then we're gonna get this put on in the bowl. Like I said, less than 5 minutes, so she'll be ready.
All of my glosses, especially with the rapid toner, start out with a double cleanse. Usually for hair extensions, we typically do 1 clarifying shampoo and then follow up with 2 additional shampoos just to make sure we're cleansing the scalp, especially around that weft area. So once that's all done, I go in with my rapid toner right onto the top area and then in between the wefts. And I'm kind of leaving the ends out a little bit because I'm just going to barely blush those through towards the end. But this stays on for a full 5 minutes. And then we rinse it out, do a hydration treatment, and then blow dry it. So a little hack is we like to use this comb attachment to dry the wefts. And then we go in and finish it off with some curls. I personally really like this very large T3 iron, and just in general I really like the T3 irons because they're extremely hot. They're like single pass irons, so that means I can get a smoothing effect as well as a curl all in one. And because they're so hot, they work extremely well if you want to increase the heat for coarser hair types like this. I of course use thermal protection throughout the entire process, so you do want to maintain the integrity of the hair. But overall, I am going to see her back in about 6 weeks, and we'll just go ahead and touch up her highlights, do a full removal, reinstall, reglaze, and everything. But overall cost for this particular client, it was $75 per row, $130 for the toner and the blowout, and then an additional $30 for the treatment. And this overall took 3 hours to complete. And here's the final result. We did rush a little bit to go outside and take some really quick final shots because she had to jet on out from her appointment. This was an impromptu YouTube tutorial, and I really hope that you enjoyed this little mini move up hair tutorial. I absolutely love how her hair turned out. It blends beautifully. You couldn't even tell that these are extensions, especially from the front here. And we're going to continue to grow out her natural hair and overall just get it to that length and density that she's desiring. She definitely can do it because she has the hair for it naturally. We're just trying to camouflage the length in the meantime. And let me know down below what you loved about this mini tutorial, or if there's something that I missed. Definitely let me know down below in the comments. To learn more about hair extensions or hair color, just anything in hair education period, you're going to want to make sure to get on my email list and be the first to know about when I drop my hair education for 2024. Or if you want to be a host for one of my hands-on classes, make sure you sign up for the inquiry form.
Hey, it's Mirella Manelli, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how to do a weft installation using hybrid weft extensions. It's the perfect marriage between hand-tied and machine weft, and it's a quick way to add volume without the bulk. But before we move on, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a tutorial. Now let's go ahead and get started. My model was looking to add some extra length and volume to her overall look. So I went ahead and color matched her with the Donabella hair swatch. And the best way to determine the color that's needed is you're going to want to use the ends of the hair and find the best color that's going to match. You're not going to want to put it towards the top because that's not where you're going to see those extensions blend. So make sure you use a swatch towards the ends. Another thing that we want to color match are the type of beads that we're going to use. So we decided to go with dark brown for the thread and bead. To get started, I'm doing a T-parting right down the middle and then right on down behind the ear. And then starting in the back from the bottom up, I'm taking really clean sections. It's very important to have clean sections when doing extensions. To make sure that you're far enough up on your first section, just take the hair and wrap it over a rat tail comb. And if you can see the tip of the comb, you need to go in a little bit deeper. I do the same thing for the sides just to be sure exactly where I need to start, because the overall goal is to not be able to see the weft or the beads. Now to get started, I take my loop tool and my silicone beads and I start to feed the hair through these silicone beads. The reason why I'm using silicone beads is because the only thing living inside of the bead is going to be her natural hair. So it's really important to use this type of bead so that way it's providing cushion and you're making sure that you're keeping the integrity of her hair in mind. So I really stress that when doing weft install that you are using a silicone bead. Once I get the entire first row in, I then take the weft of hair and start to measure. So I lay the end of the hair right a little past each of the beads. And for this first row, I'm actually going to double up this weft and then just cut it. So always double measure just to be sure. And then I'm going to take my clips. I usually clip the ends first and then start to clip towards the top. And I start in the center and then work my way towards the outer corners. Honestly, the more cleaner your sections are, the better you are when doing a weft install. A little added tip is if you want to know how much string to cut, I usually do about 4 to 5 widths of my section measuring out with string. I then feed it through my needle and then tie a knot about 2 to 3 times on the end to secure it. Now to get started, I usually go 2 beads in and then feed my thread all the way till I have about an inch or 2 left over that I can visibly see. And then I loop it through again, and then this is where I create my first knot. Now it's not 100% secure yet, so I do this 2 times in the same area just to make sure that I have the thread secure. And then I start to work towards the outside corners.
So keep in mind that when you have a bead, you want to thread it through each side. So on the right side, and then loop it through, and then loop it through the left side of the bead. And the way I usually figure out exactly where I need to feed my needle is sometimes I will put my finger right behind that weft so I can feel exactly where I'm putting that needle through. Now, once I get to the very first bead, I actually loop it through one time on the right hand side and make sure to pull right on up to secure, and then I loop it 2 times on the left and then 1 more time on the right. And then I start to work towards the center and then to the very end of my entire row. And the reason why I do this method is so that way I ensure that I get a nice secure fit and snug feel on the very, very end, so that way these wefts actually stay in place for the duration as she wears them until she's ready for her next appointment. I keep my knots very simple throughout this entire service, and this ensures that I'm moving swiftly throughout the entire appointment. And to be honest, I don't really think it's necessary to do any fancy types of loops or knots. I find that just doing a simple loop through the weft and pulling the thread through the center is enough to ensure that this weft is going to stay in place. I find that the most important part is making sure to anchor it properly on the very ends, and sometimes when the section gets a little extra long, like towards the top, I do add a few more loops towards the center of my weft. So I just continue on until I have a loop on each side of each bead. So again, you can stick your fingers right underneath that row so you can feel exactly where you're feeding that needle and thread. And then when I get to the very, very end, on the very last bead, I loop it 2 times on the left and then 2 times on the right, and then I secure it with a knot. Now, to fully secure your very last section, you can tie a regular knot, but what I find is I actually take my needle and thread and then I loop it 2 times through the same hole, and then I just pull it right on up nice and snug, and actually that knot kind of secures itself, and then I'm able to get really close and go ahead and cut that thread out. Now, moving on to my next section, I'm going about 2 inches above the last row that I did. And again, you want to make sure you take really, really clean sections. I usually use my brush to make sure it's nice and organized, clip it up with my claw clips, and then I'm using these hair grippers that are also from Donna Bella. You can buy them on their website, and they actually keep the hair in place. And usually when I do this, I go through and final detail as much as possible, but my particular model had lots of little baby hairs going on, and I'm not quite sure you can see that even through the camera. So a little pro tip is to use some hairspray and spray that down lightly and then just comb it down. So I got a nice clean section going on, and I'm going in about 3 inches from her hairline. So just kind of keep that in mind where your starting position is at. And you can even see my section is slightly rounded as well. So I'm going to start getting more U-shaped as I move right on up. I'm taking my loop toolkit with my silicone beads and then just installing this entire row with nice clean sections. The more organized and clean your sections are, the easier your work's gonna be. So for this second row, I ended up adding 3 wefts total. And so these are hybrid wefts. So what that means is that the hybrid weft is machine sewn, but they're as thin as hand tied. So that's why they're called a hybrid. So what I love about these weft extensions is that you can really double and triple, and in some cases for really thick hair, you can even quadruple them up for the density that you're trying to achieve. For my particular model's hair, she is pretty much on the medium side, but we wanted to add a little bit of extra density for this mid zone here. So I did add 3 full wefts and then sewn it completely the same, just like I did for the first section. For my third and final section, I went up a little bit more horseshoe shaped, and you can see how far up I went. Now, something to keep in mind when you start to get towards the top, you want to make sure you cannot see your comb through that hair. So I find a lot of times I start a little further back, so just double check and make sure you're in the right spot, because it is a little deceiving sometimes when you see the section, you think you can go in a little bit deeper, but I find that when I get towards this area, most people are a little sparse towards the temple area, so just keep that in mind as you work through. So I finished installing this entire row, same thing with my loop tool kit, Lux tool, and silicone beads, and then I take the weft and I actually measure it from end to end, and I'm going to apply actually 3 rows for this final row. So what that means is I measure it out and then I fold over the weft 3 times, and then I cut it and then secure it with the clips. And I want extra density here, so that's really the primary reason why I like putting 3 rows for that middle and then for that very top. So here's a little bit of a closer look into how I install the thread and feed it through. So you can see I'm on that second bead on the right hand side, and I'm actually taking the thread all the way through until a little bit just shows through. And then a great little tip is to take the end if you're having trouble securing it at all, and take it and clip it right on up with a clip. So now that I have my first feed through, I'm then gonna go one more time in that same exact section, and this is where I'm gonna make my first knot. So I'm taking the thread and needle and then just securing it nice and snug. And then now I'm gonna cross over and go towards the left-hand side of the bead, feed it right on through, and pulling that needle and thread right on through the loop. So once I get these 2 sections in, now I'm gonna move on that outer corner, and I'm gonna put in 1 loop through the right side, and then I'm gonna put 2 loops through the left side, and then 1 more loop on the right side of that very first bead, and then start to work my way towards the center. This is gonna give you the most secure and snug fit possible and still make it very comfortable for your client. So now I got that entire row in, and to do my final knot, I'm gonna loop my needle and thread through, and then loop the needle through the loop 2 more times, making sure that I have a nice secure knot pulling the thread completely up, and now it is secure and I can go ahead and cut it, and it's not going to go anywhere. Now I let the rest of her hair down, and it's time to cut and blend, but you can see how beautiful this color actually matched her extensions. It's amazing. So I'm just slightly trimming it and shaping it up. She wasn't looking to lose too much length, so I just took a few inches off of the back and then blended her hair into the extensions towards the front. An added tip when working with this length is to make sure your client is standing when you do your cut. And look at how beautiful these blended. This is her hair completely straight, and now I'm gonna get ready to do her final style.
And here's the final result of my hybrid weft installation. So I really hope you enjoyed this hair tutorial, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe, and comment down below what your favorite part of this entire tutorial was, and I'll be sure to respond. You can also find me on my other social channels like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all under Mirella Manelli. Hey, it's Mirella Manelli, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to show you how I do an invisible bead reinstallment, and I'm also going to share some of my best tips and tricks on how I add value to all of my hair extension appointments. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a tutorial. Now let's go ahead and get started.
It's been about 6 weeks since my models had her invisible weft installation. So if you want to check out what that looks like, you can check out the other video where I installed an invisible weft right at the top or in the description of this video. But this is basically a 6-week grow out, and she only has 2 rows installed, and we're going to be doing a move up appointment for her as well as a glaze just to freshen up her overall look. I'm gonna start out by detangling my model's hair using this boar bristle brush by Donabella. It's actually really important to educate your clients to maintenance their hair in between their service by brushing their hair at least 2 times a day, so once in the morning and once at night, and if they're able to, even a 3rd time throughout the middle of the day to prevent any tangles or unnecessary knots. The way I like to detangle is row by row, so I'm going to start from the bottom and work my way up, and I'm just taking the brush on the top of the weft as well as the bottom of the weft and just taking my time and being really careful to not pull on her real hair because we have the beads still installed here, so we don't want to create any unnecessary tension, so definitely take your time. If you do experience lots of excess tangling, then this is the perfect opportunity for you to educate your client once again. Overall, my model did a really great job of maintaining and brushing her hair extensions in between her service. However, we did experience a little bit of excess tangling on the underside, so I just made sure to point that out to her so that way she can pay attention to it a little bit more when she goes home from her service today. Some great tips to educate your clients on is to wear their hair in a loose ponytail after they've brushed it at night, or even a loose braid, and then of course a silk pillowcase. So I'm just about done detangling my model's hair on the underside as well as the surface, and then once I have that all done, now I'm going to section it all off and really clean it up for the move up installation. The beauty of a move-up appointment is that it's already sectioned for you. So all you're doing is making sure to create a really clean section. She probably has some new growth as well as those little baby hairs. So you just want to take your time in perfecting your section. I like to use a little bit of hairspray and take the boar bristle brush and just make sure to get a really clean section, keeping all of those little flyaways at bay and creating a nice taut section and holding it down with one of my claw clips. Next, I'm going to cut the threads, and I'm going to do this using my stork shears. Now, you want to be really careful when doing this process because sometimes it can be hard to distinguish between the thread and the natural hair itself. So just take your time, there's no rush in cutting each of these threads out, and you're just going to do them one at a time until all of them are cut. Once that's done, you'll be able to lightly tug and pull onto the weft extension itself and just guide it out around the bead, and it should slip right on out. If it doesn't, that's probably because there's still a thread attached and you just want to find it and cut it, and it should come right on out. Next, you're going to take your Luxe tool and loosen up the bead. Now, generally in 6 weeks for me, the beads are still in really great condition, so you don't necessarily have to replace them, although Donabella does suggest to replace them each and every single time. However, her beads were still in really great condition, so I just moved them down and then took a comb and continued to detangle and loosen up all of that natural shed that she has. And then once I do that, I'm able to then move up that bead with my Luxe tool and secure it right back into place. This part is relatively simple because, again, that hair is already sectioned out for you, so the process can be relatively quick and smooth. General rule of thumb, though, is if you're new to extensions and you're unsure of the condition or quality of the bead, just go ahead and replace it. But I've done this enough times to see and know that the bead is in great condition, so detangling around it and then just moving it up is the quickest option for me. A couple of tips when doing this process is after you've loosened up the bead, immediately move it up and then use your fine tooth comb to loosen all of the hair shed. And then pull the hair nice and taut, and then you can secure your bead. Just be sure to secure your bead so that it's parallel with your section, and then continue until you're all completely done. Remember to replace your bead if necessary. And then now we're getting ready to sew our weft that's already pre-cut and already ready to go right back into her hair. You just want to make sure that you de-thread any loose threads that are going on in there, and then you're going to open it up so that way we can put it back in exactly how it was sewn in the first time, which was an invisible weft. Once I have my hair ready to go, I then isolate each of the sectioned out beads and pull each of those hairs right on up and make sure to secure them with a clip. You also want to make sure that this is really clean as well and you're not pulling on any hairs that are not attached to the bead itself. So this is really important because now we're going to layer in our bottom weft. Even though your weft is already sectioned out and measured to the size from the previous install, you still want to double check and make sure that it matches up. And if it doesn't, then you can definitely readjust. If you've done an invisible sew-in before, this process is all the same. You're basically going to have lots of little clips on hand. These ones are from donnabellahair.com as well. And I like them because they have lots of clips that come in a pack and there's plenty of them to add in. So use as many as you need to securely fit your hair extensions right underneath each of those beads. You want to make sure that they're nice and snug and as close as possible so that way the sew-in process is seamless and easy. Once I have that weft secure underneath each of the beads, I bring the section of hair right on down and then just fit the last bit of weft extension right on top of those beads. Generally, I like to clip the weft from the top, and this is also a great gauge for you when you get ready to sew in with the needle and thread, so that way you know exactly where each of the beads are at. So basically just use whatever process makes sense for you. Overall, you just want to make sure that the weft is securely in place and it's not going to go anywhere when you get ready to do the sew-in portion. The easiest way that I find to get my needle and thread started is to loop in the needle and thread on the third bead, and then I just simply tie a knot 3 times on the edge of that bead. There's honestly no reason to get super fancy on this portion so long as the thread is nice and secure and you're able to cut the thread pretty close to the knot so that way it's not visible. Once it's secure, now you can go through comfortably and sew in on the right side and the left side of the bead until you get to the edge. I like to start on that third bead because it gives me 3 beads to create a double strand. That way it's almost like your anchor piece and the weft is not going to move. Typically I do anchor pieces on each end of the weft and sometimes in the center for a really large weft such as this one. I like to use my fingers to feel exactly where each of those beads are at. Generally, I like to sew on the right and the left side of the bead, and I'm a big advocate for not sewing right on top of the bead. However, when you are doing an invisible sew-in method like this one, it kind of doesn't matter, only because each and every single time you have to move this weft up, you're gonna need to cut it completely out anyways. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, but it's just a really great practice to get used to in case your client doesn't want the invisible bead. The move-up appointment is gonna be a lot easier. Once I get my anchor section completely done, so again, starting from that third bead and then working to the exterior of this section, I'm then gonna work my way right back in. So each of these beads are gonna have a minimum of 2 sew-ins on each side, making it super secure. And then I'm just gonna continue on sewing on the left side and the right side of each bead until I get to the very end of the weft. When you do get to the very end of the weft, you want to make sure that you're creating those anchor pieces, and the way you do that is by sewing right back in, so going from right to left until you get to the third bead in. So basically mirroring what you did to even get it started. And then once you have that secure, then we're gonna end this thread by knotting it off. Now I'm going to show you in real time so that way you don't miss it, but you can see that I am on that third bead, so I'm just going to loop it through 2 more times to make sure that it's nice and secure, because at the end of the day you do not want your weft to unravel. So ensuring that you have a little added security right here on the edge is super important. So I'm just gonna guide this thread right on through, and then once I have my last loop that I'm gonna do, this is where I'm gonna tie my knot. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can just simply tie a knot right on over this bead. However, I like to do it this way just so it gets as close as possible, so that way I can cut the thread, again, pretty close to that weft. So I tie a knot, and then I'm gonna loop through this needle just 2 more times. And each time that I'm doing this, I'm just kind of slightly guiding it closer and closer to the weft. You just want to be really careful, and this is another part where you just want to take your time with it and carefully guide the knot as close as possible to the weft. If you do this part too fast, it's not going to get as close as you'd like it to, so just take your time. And then once you have that knot and secured, you're just going to take your Stark shears and cut your thread, and then don't forget to do a brush through of your section. This is really, really important to make sure you're brushing in between each of your sections so everything is nice and seamless and super clean as you work through. I'm going to do the same exact process to the second row, and now I'm going to share my added tips on how I add value to each of my move up appointments. I like to always add in a shampoo and blow dry at a bare minimum for each of my clients during a move up appointment. And the reason for this is because you could see all of that dead skin that was living in between the beads when she came in. So I like to just clean it up and make sure that she's at least freshly styled. But for added value, I usually include a clear gloss or even a colored gloss at each appointment. So this is the perfect time to do this as soon as you're done with your invisible weft, and you can see we got a really great installation and you cannot tell where the weft begins and ends. So I'm gonna actually mix up a demi-permanent hair color, and you wanna make sure that it's something that's ammonia free. I personally love using Kenra color, so I'm gonna mix that up 1:2 mixing ratio. She decided that she wanted to add in a little bit more of a copper shade to her hair color. Something to keep in mind is you don't want to go too much darker or not even lighter. We can't use a lightening process on this, but you don't want to go too dark with your formula. You want to stay at level. So we're going to be mixing up a combination of a 6 and a 7 for her. And I'm going to shampoo her hair really, really well. I usually start off with a clarifying shampoo just to get off the excess gunk that's on her hair. And then I'm gonna do one more shampoo that's moisturizing, because that's really great to prep the extensions for that color service. And then finally, I'm gonna follow up with the demi-permanent glaze right at the bowl, process her for 15 minutes, then do a thorough rinse out and condition her hair. This is also a great time to add value by adding on a treatment to the hair. So keep in mind, those hair extensions are real human hair extensions, so you want to treat them as though your client has naturally really long hair. So what better way to treat her hair than with a moisturizing treatment underneath the dryer? Once she's all done, I then blow dry it and style it, and then of course take lots of pictures for social media so that way you can build your hair extension business and get way more clients just by sharing your work on social. And here's the final result of this invisible bead hair extension installment using all Donabella hair. So just to give you a little recap, we actually moved up 2 rows of color 610 22-inch Donabella hair extensions, and then after we did the sew-in, we threw on a gorgeous glaze with a copper shade on top of that color 610 for a very rich, super hydrated, and healthy look to her hair extensions. And now she's ready to rock this hair for another 6 weeks before we move up her hair one more time.
I really hope you enjoyed this hair tutorial, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe.
And comment down below what your favorite part of this entire tutorial was, and I'll be sure to respond. Hey, it's Mirella Manelli, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm so excited because I'm going to be coloring and installing some 18-inch hair extensions. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and give this video a like, and make sure to turn on all notifications so you don't miss a tutorial. Now let's go ahead and get started. So first things first, I did prepare my model's hair color prior to her installation, so this was really important. I do have a full YouTube tutorial on the application on my channel, so if you want to check that out, but here is a quick before and after. So once her color was done, I went ahead and placed the order for the hair extensions. My model's preferred install method was tape-in, so we also wanted to add in length and fullness, so we decided 18-inch was the way to go. So here I'm color matching her on those ends, and I felt that 1B matched her perfectly, so we can add in that depth. And then the other two options were 1B 60 and then 60, so we can create that green to yellow color melt. So here is another green option that Donabella offers, but didn't quite match her, so we just felt that this color combo of 1B 60 and 60 was going to be the best option for us to go ahead and custom color it so it can match perfectly and seamlessly. So what you're seeing here is the custom colorization process. So I have the 18-inch extension here in 60, and I'm actually color blending in this direct dye from Kenra Color. Now I'm also using funked up film to layer one extension on top of the other. Now the whole reason I do that is so that way I can see exactly where this blend starts and ends, and there's no guessing game with that. So quick tip when working with direct dyes is start with your lightest color first and then work your way up to your darkest color. So that's why I'm applying the yellow first onto the ends. And then one thing that I didn't quite film here or show you is that you're going to want to color both sides of the extension. So that's super important. And then you're also going to want to make sure you really work through the product and pushing that color into the hair extension. You're also going to want to process this for about 20 minutes, but if you left it on longer, it's not a big deal because this is direct dye. There's really no processing time with this. Also make sure to use cool water and then just do a light shampoo if you're doing a color blend like I'm doing here. And the whole reason for that is so that way you can avoid any color bleeding that your client might experience when they wash their hair for the first time. So that's just a little added tip for myself is I normally don't shampoo out direct dyes, but for hair extensions I will do a slight shampoo and condition to prepare them, and then you're going to 100% dry them and get ready for your install. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and section out Yadira's hair, but I do want to just point out here where you can see that green blend right in the front, and then for the back side we're going to add in some depth because she has a lot of that black natural hair color poking through, and then we're going to simulate her ombre color that she has going on with the baby lights. So I sectioned her off into a T parting, so right down the center because that's where she naturally parts her hair, and then right at the apex or a little behind the apex down behind the ears where I part it. So for this first section, I'm going to work from the bottom right on up. So this is really important. You don't want to install extensions any other way. You want to work from the bottom up. This is just going to keep your sections nice and clean throughout. And then also you're going to want to have enough depth going on there on that bottom section. So kind of a general rule of thumb is to come in about 2 fingers width on the sides, and then also about 2 to maybe 3 fingers width from the bottom up. This is just to ensure that these tapes are not visible when you get ready to install them. So here you're seeing me install my very first row. So I decided to go in with the 1B color and sandwich those two colors together, and it's just to create again that depth that we want underneath. This is just going to give me that pop of color. Now you probably can notice she does have a little bit of green on those tips, but she is growing that out, and it's not a super concern for her, and she'd prefer that her color look a lot more darker underneath so that way that green and yellow really stands out. Now for this first row, I'm just going to go in with 2 sandwich tape-ins of 1B. And again, you want to make sure you have enough room according to your client's density on the sides of the hair. This is going to give you that cushion. So Yadira's hair is fine, but it has a lot of density. And the way I'm going in with this install here is placing the first sandwich on the very surface of the hair and pushing that tape in all the way and pressing it up against her head to make sure that I'm getting enough hair to stick to it. And then you just lift up that hair extension and you can visually see what that tape actually picked up. And then you're just going to take your quick pick and then loosen up any hairs, kind of free them so that we have a nice clean section. What's really great about this technique of applying it this way is that the tape is going to pick up the perfect amount of hair according to the client's density. What you'll notice on some of your clients is that they have more density in different parts of their head than others. So that's why this technique really works well. For this particular model, I decided to go in with some very close back-to-back sections here to create lots of depth. Her haircut is super blunt, plus we want to match her density with these extensions as much as possible to add that length and then also that fullness that she's desiring. So the whole idea of putting in these sections about 1/4 inch apart is, again, to create that depth and fullness with this 1 beat application. So for the first 3 rows here, they are sitting right next to each other, and it gave me that depth that you'll see when we're completely done. So a really quick tip when you're installing tape-ins that helps me a ton is that when you get ready to install the very first tape is to match it up horizontally to your section and then bring it down the width of the tape. You're then going to apply it and make sure you're pressing down firmly onto the scalp to really make that hair stick. The next step is to take the extension and lift it completely up so that way you can see what hairs are stuck to the tape and which ones need to be separated and fall out. That's where you're going to take your quick pick and separate those hairs, and then you're going to take the other part of the tape in or your sandwich and take the tape off and then line it up right underneath, and then make sure to press down on the sides and also in the center. And this is going to make sure that you have a nice marriage between these 2 tapes. So one thing to note is that you are using medical grade tape, which is going to give you that lasting long hold from Donabella hair, as well as the polyurethane template, which is going to give you that minimal shedding, which is fantastic. So I'm already at my 4th row. Again, I have those 1/4 inch subsections. We want to create lots of rows here to match her density and to create that length because she has that blunt haircut. So I'm using these Velcro hair grippers to isolate those baby hairs, because as I was working up, I started to notice we had a lot of baby hairs kind of getting in the way. So these hair grippers are an amazing tool to have in your arsenal. So here's where I started to transition, because now I'm incorporating a little bit more green into her hair. So this is where I'm going to take that 1B60 that I colored with the darker hair color of green, and then right underneath this particular section, I'm still adding in that 1B. So this is what's going to give me that transition. So it doesn't go drastically from 1B into an ombre. I want there to be, again, that transition. So here on this row, I added 4 of those. And then for the next row right on top, I'm just going to sandwich the 1B60 18-inch Donabella hair extension right on top of each other. Once I have this row complete, now I'm going to incorporate the sides. So the sides is where we're going to add in those ombre colors going on. So one thing to note is you want to have enough room right on top of that ear. So it can be really uncomfortable if you apply the tapes too close to the ear section, especially if they wear glasses like my model. And you also want to make sure you're working far enough back. Again, keep in mind that all of this hair that you're installing should be placed in the interior, and that way you can avoid the tape being visible. So for this very first sandwich here, I'm actually putting in my ombre shade and then layering in just a darker green hair color right underneath so I can create that depth for the green. And for the back portion, I'm then gonna take my straight green hair. Again, this was used with the 60 color from Donabella Hair, and I just colored it from roots to ends with the darker green hair color from Kenra Color. And then I'm sandwiching right underneath the ombre 1B60 right underneath. So again, you're starting to see that transition all over again right on this very last section that I'm applying in the back. And the reason is because that's really how her hair color appears to the naked eye. So I wanted to mimic that as much as possible. For this next section right here on the side, I'm gonna go ahead and apply it again really close to that section below. So there's only a 1/4 inch subsections going on, and I'm sandwiching my 2 green to yellow ombre colors that I custom colored for her right here on the side, so that way we have a nice pop of this color going on, because this is really the statement piece that really brings all of her hair color together. I'm then going to finish off with one more tape right here on the side. Again, it's for that statement piece, and I did go up a little higher than I normally do, but the reason why we decided to go up this high, it's something that I communicated to my model, and we know that she parts her hair down the center every single time, so this tape was going to remain hidden. Now here comes the really tricky part, is blending in this blunt haircut into these beautiful hair extensions that we just installed. So I decided to go in with some texturizing shears on her actual natural hair. So again, this is something you want to communicate to your client before you start cutting into their hair. But I decided to go in with this method because, again, her haircut is really, really blunt. Her end goal is to eventually have long layered hair. So texturizing the ends and adding in a little bit of layers wasn't really a big deal for my model. Once I got her natural line of demarcation broken up, I then went in and started blending in with a razor those layers from where her hair starts and then into those layers, just creating lots of movement. So again, we want to create as much blend as possible. So go ahead and take your time during this section. I know it seems a little scary at times, but just take your time, work section by section until you get the best blend possible. Then finally, styling. So this is so important. You want to educate your client on how to style their hair at home, how to take care of it. This is the perfect opportunity for you to remind them all the steps they need to do in order to care for their hair extensions.
And here's the final result of my hair transformation using 18-inch tape and extensions from Donabella Hair Extensions. So just to give you a little recap, I went in with 3 different colors of 60 and 1B60 and 1B hair extensions, and I went in and colored those beforehand with Kenra Color direct dye with a combination of blue, yellows, whites, and true black. And then after those were done processing, we made sure to wash those and dry those 100% dry before doing the install. Now for Yadira's install specifically, we went in with 1/4 inch subsections throughout her entire hair, since she had a lot of density but really fine hair as well, just to give her a really great blend. And then we fine-tuned her by giving her really gorgeous haircut, incorporating lots of different layers just to make sure we got a nice blend from that blunt haircut that she had going on. And as you can see, we got lots of gorgeous fullness and it looks beautiful on her, and she's really happy with the final results. So I really hoped you enjoyed this hair tutorial, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe, and I will see you next time. Oh yeah, and make sure to check out my other hair tutorials on this channel. What's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mirella Manelli, and today I'm going to be piggybacking off of another hair video that I just created, which was 3 ways to install hair tinsel. But in this video, I'm going to show you 3 additional ways to install as well as remove. Now, I had tons of questions on exactly how the removal process happens, so that's exactly what I'm going to do in this video today, as well as 3 additional creative ways to just put them in as a hairstylist or a hair professional. But before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss a video. Now let's go ahead and get started. Now I was really excited to see how many people loved my last hair tinsel video, and in that particular video I showed how to do a beaded method, a single-sided tape, as well as a slip knot. But in this video I'm gonna show you how to remove those methods, but I'm also going to show you some advanced versions of hair tinsel application specifically for hairstylists or hair pros. So today I'm going to be showing you how to install hair tinsel with a Carolink. Now this is something I didn't show in the last video, as well as I'm going to show you an advanced version for tape in as well as a weft install. I'm actually really excited about the hybrid weft because not too many people do this technique, so make sure you watch to the end to watch how I do that. Now there are some changes to the beaded and the tape-in method versus the last video, so make sure you watch that one if you want like the beginner's version. This one in this video is going to be a little bit more advanced, so I kind of like to call this one for like the hairstylists. Okay, so here is my lovely mannequin. And I'm just going to show you how to install. So we're just going to take that small section. I have my pre-loaded beads here, so they're already pre-tied. Going to loop that through. And then taking this Lux tool, we're going to slide that bead right on up. Make sure it's parallel and horizontal to your section. And then you're just gonna secure that bead right on down. And now you have your hair tinsel installed. Now just for funsies, I went ahead and put in 3 just so you can see them side by side and exactly how it looks. Now of course, as you add in more, you can really create some gorgeous highlights really. But how do you remove these? This was like one of the most popular questions on my last video. So it's really simple. So once you've secured your bead and they've grown out in about 6 weeks or so, your client's gonna come back in, and in order to remove this, you're gonna need this Lux tool once again. Now there is a little sink cylinder right in the center of this Lux tool, and this is what's gonna help open up that bead. And the way you do that is you're gonna isolate your bead, insert your Lux tool, and then gently press down to pop open that bead, and it slides right on out. Now that I showed you one way to install and remove, I'm actually going to show you another way on how to install your tinsel without pre-loading your beads. So you're just going to take a really small section that's no wider than the bead that you're working with. Once you've done this, you're going to take your hair tinsel and layer it right on top of that. And you're gonna take your loop tool with beads already preloaded here. But there's no hair tinsel on these beads, so I just wanna reiterate that. It's just a singular bead here. And all you're going to do is loop that hair and hair tinsel all the way through. And now your tinsel is already installed. You don't have to necessarily make a knot. It's just going to stay in nice and snug once you've secured it with this Lux tool. And now it's installed. And you would remove it exactly the same way that we removed these first beads. Now I'm gonna show you how to do it with a single-sided tape, but I'm gonna incorporate this really fun pop of purple color, also from Donabella Hair. Now these are tape-ins, and this is like the entire pack that comes, so I'm just gonna cut these little strings that it normally comes in with my stork shears. And again, you can find all of these tools on their website. And I'm just gonna take one singular tape right here. And in order for me to do this, I'm gonna install the tape a little differently than I normally do. So if you wanna check out a tape in install, be sure to check out the description down below. But I am gonna need one of these little mini clips just to kind of hold it in place for me. But how I'm gonna do it is I'm gonna take a really
thin section that's the width of my tape. I don't want this section to be too dense, so I want it just thin enough. So it should be the exact width of your tape. And I'm going to take these little pieces off, those little tabs, and I'm going to place this tape right underneath my section and bring this hair down. And then I usually take the back of my rat tail comb just to kind of smooth that over. So from here I like to prep my tinsel, and I'm just going to split the tinsel right in half, and then using my strand organizer, I'm just going to kind of fan these out exactly how I want them to live. So I'm basically prepping it so that way it can become a tape. Next, I'm going to take my single-sided tape, also from Donabella Hair, and it comes in a little sheet like this. And I'm just going to peel that tab right on out. So as you can see, it's clear. And I'm going to take those rounded edges and make sure they're facing up, because that's the direction of how my tape is looking. And I'm just going to place this tab right on top of this tinsel. And it's already doing a really great job sticking. So now I got all of this excess little tiny rainbow here. And this is where I'm just going to take my stork shears and trim off the excess. Now it's ready to install on top of this pop of color, which makes this so fun. So I'm just going to place this right on top here. And then make sure to really press down in the center and on the sides, so that way I get a nice, secure, snug fit. And how cute is that? Now I'm going to show you how I normally do a removal process for this, just using the purple so that we can really see. And how I normally install my tape is by placing the tape right on top and pulling this section up. So it actually creates my section for me right here. You can see it just really makes the hair kind of stand up there. So I'm able to go ahead and select the proper amount of density. So this is a little bit different than how I installed this hair tinsel with the pop of color. So there are two different ways. This is my preferred method, but when I'm doing tinsel, I do it the way I showed you on this side. So once you get this in, and these have grown out, you're going to need to remove them with the right tools. Now, in order to remove this tape, or even the tape with the tinsel in it, you're gonna need the Donabella Tape and Bond Remover. It comes in a little spray bottle, and you simply just spray a few sprays right onto your bond. But just so you guys are certain, look, I'm pulling on it. This tape is not going anywhere, okay? So you're just gonna take your spray and basically saturate it. I just do about 3. Now, for whatever reason, it's kind of like really in there, you can spray the underneath as well. And then I just give it a few seconds. And you only wanna do this as you're working on each tape. You don't wanna spray each of them and then go through it, because then it starts to get really kind of gummy. And then this tape literally just comes right apart. And that's it. Look at how that slides right on out. Now from here, you can go ahead and remove this tape and then rebond them with those single-sided tapes, and you can reuse this hair again. That's what makes it so amazing. Now I'm gonna show you my next two kind of fun methods, which is installing with a keratin bond or fusion bond and making your own tinsel with that. And I'm also gonna show you how to remove it. And then I'm gonna show you how to install the tinsel onto your hybrid weft.
So in order to prep these, I'm using the Donabella Rebronze in clear. Now they do come in brown and black as well, but since we're doing tinsel, the clear is perfect. I'm going to show you two different ways to use a rebond. So the first way is to really make your own eye link. This isn't something that I necessarily mentioned at the beginning of the video, but I basically take that rebond and place it onto my melting connector, and then take my tinsel and then place it right onto that bond in the melting connector. And it literally heats up within 3 seconds. So you kind of have to be really fast with this. And then once you put that tinsel right onto that bond, you're able to roll it into place, and then that way you can use a flare bead to install. Now, the second way that you're going to make a keratin bond tinsel is taking that clear rebond, still heating it up for that 3 to 5 seconds, and inserting that tinsel. But when you go through to shape it, you're going to shape it in more of a rectangular or square shape, because we are going to reheat this bond up and roll it right into the hair, making this last a really long time. This bond is actually going to last longer than I think the tinsel will. So here are the two techniques side by side. One's an eye link and one's a keratin bond. Let me know which one you think you'd like to use down below.
So in order to install our makeshift eye link here, I am going to be using a flare bead. So these are a little different. They come in a different packaging, and you can see they're a little longer in size. They are installed very similarly to the silicone bead method, but we're going to take a section of hair that's just as wide as my flare bead. And what's cool is you'll be able to see exactly what they look like side by side. So you can already see this one's a little longer in its size. And this is going to allow me to add in this tip and insert it. And then taking that same Luxe tool, I'm just going to secure it in place. And these are actually removed in the exact same method as these silicone beads. But you can already tell this has a much bigger pop of color versus the silicone bead method. So lots of variations that we have going on here. Now I'm going to show you one last method on how to install and remove, and that's with the Keralink option here. So you can see this one's a little bit more flat, and we're actually going to remelt this onto the hair. So this is a keratin bond. It is not glue. Everyone always asks that. So I'm just going to take a section of hair that's as small as my section of hair or tinsel that I've picked up. I'm going to add my tinsel right here, and then taking my heat tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and melt that for about 3 to 5 seconds, tap it in, and then roll it into the hair. And again, you can see these have a very similar outcome, just a different install method. So it's all about what you and your client want to achieve with tinsel. Do you want something that's really minimal? Do you want a bold pop of color, or do you want these really striking ribbons of tinsel to come across? So in order to remove your keratin bond, you are going to need the Donna Bella Keratin Bond Remover. Now it comes in this bottle, and I went ahead and installed a brown Keralink so that way you can really see exactly what it looks like. And all you do is spray it on for a few little sprays there, and then you're going to take your Donna Bella Luxe tool. So you can see this tool is very versatile, and there's actually like little crushers like in here, so that's the part that you're going to use. So this is going to crush the bond so that way it can release from the hair. Now this is a brand new bond, so it might give you a little extra trouble, but usually after wear and tear of these bonds, they slide right off after this process. So I just basically turn the bond around and make sure to crush it on all sides, because that's what's going to loosen it up. And then you're going to take the actual keratin hair, and make sure to hold the actual hair in place while you slip that right on out. And then from here, you're just gonna comb the excess right on out, and she's ready to go.
And here's the very last method that I'm going to show you is how to add tinsel to your hybrid weft. Now, this is a great add-on service that is a little time consuming, but there's two ways on how you can loop through this tinsel into your hybrid weft. The first way is, of course, sewing it into the actual weft itself. Now, I typically would recommend using a traditional sewing bead for this because the hybrid weft is pretty thin on top. That's what makes it so unique. It's thin as hand tied, but it's machine bonded, and these Donabella needles are a little bit on the thick side, so they're great for actually sewing in the weft to the actual hair. Now, the second option, which is my favorite, is just simply tying a singular or a few strands at a time onto the hybrid weft, and this is going to help that tinsel stay in place for the longevity of the hybrid weft. And you can make these as big of a pop or as subtle as you'd like, which makes this, again, a very unique customized service that you can charge for and prep for when you're doing these weft installs.
And this wraps up my 3 additional ways to install and remove hair tinsel. So I really hoped you enjoyed this hair tutorial, and if you did, please give this video a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe, comment down below what your favorite method is, and I'll be sure to respond. You can also find me on my other social channels like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, all under Mirella Manelli. And if you love listening to podcasts and you want to get more information about everything hair, beauty, and business, be sure to check me out on Airbnb. It's available on all streaming platforms, and it's where I help hairstylists just like you simplify color, styling, and their beauty biz. And if you are a hair professional that really wants to elevate their hair business, you're looking to maybe monetize on social media, work with brands, or just simply become an influencer and learn creative ways on how to market you and your business on social media, whether that's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and even Facebook and Pinterest, or maybe building your website, be sure to check out Beyond the Chair Mastermind. It's a community group coaching session that's held once a month, and on top of that, you're able to go back and binge watch all of the other sessions that you may have not attended. Plus, there's some special bonuses like how to write the perfect social media bio and content ideas and so much more. If you want to learn more about the other educational offerings that I have, and one last thing, be sure to share this video with a friend who would love content like this, and be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.